أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم ربنا زدنا علما نافعا وعملا صالحا. اللهم ربنا زدنا علما نافعا وعملا صالحا. اللهم ربنا زدنا علما نافعا وعملا صالحا. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We will recite from Surah Yusuf. We will start from verse 43. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وقال الملك إني أرى 7 بقرات سمان يأكلهن سبع عجاف و7 سنبلات خضر وأخر يابسات. يا أيها الملأ أفتوني في رؤياي إن كنتم بالرؤيا تعبرون. قالوا أضغاث أحلام وما نحن بتأويل الأحلام بعالمين. وقال الذي نجا منهما وادكر بعد أمة أنا أنبئكم بتأويله فأرسلون. يوسف أيها الصديق أفتنا في 7 بقرات سمان يأكلهن سبع عجاف و7 سنبلات خضر وأخر يابسات لعلي أرجع إلى الناس لعلهم يعلمون. قال تزرعون 7 سنين دأبا فما حصدتم فذروه في سنبله إلا قليلا مما تأكلون. ثم يأتي من بعد ذلك 7 شداد يأكلن ما قدمتم لهن إلا قليلا مما تحسنون. ثم يأتي من بعد ذلك عام فيه يغاث الناس وفيه يعصرون. وقال الملك ائتوني به فلما جاءه الرسول قال ارجع إلى ربك فاسأله ما بال النسوة اللاتي قطعن أيديهن إن ربي بكيدهن عليم. قال ما خطبكن إذ راوتن يوسف عن نفسه قلنا حاش لله ما علمنا عليه من سوء. قالت امرأة العزيز الآن حصحص الحق أنا راودته عن نفسه وإنه لمن الصادقين. ذلك ليعلم أني لم أخنه بالغيب وأن الله لا يهدي كيد الخائن. وما أبرئ نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي إن ربي غفور رحيم. وقال الملك ائتوني به أستخلصه لنفسي فلما كلمه قال إنك اليوم لدينا مكين أمين. قال اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليم وكذلك مكنا ليوسف في الأرض يتبوأ منها حيث يشاء نصيب برحمتنا من نشاء ولا نضيع أجر المحسنين ولأجر الآخرة خير للذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون وجاء إخوة يوسف فدخلوا عليه فعرفهم وهم له منكرون ولما جهزهم بجهازهم قال ائتوني بأخ لكم من أبيكم ألا ترون أني أوفي الكيل وأنا خير المنزلين فإن لم تأتوني به فلا كيل لكم عندي ولا تقربون قالوا سنراود عنه أباه وإنا لفاعلون وقال لفتيانه جعلوا بضاعتهم في رحالهم لعلهم يعرفونها إذا انقلبوا إلى أهلهم لعلهم يرجعون فلما رجعوا إلى أبيهم قالوا يا أبانا منع منا الكيل فأرسل معنا أخانا نكتل وإنا له لحافظون قال هل آمنكم عليه إلا كما أمنتكم على أخيه من قبل والله خير حافظا وهو أرحم الراحمين ولما فتحوا متاعهم وجدوا بضاعتهم ردت إليهم قالوا يا أبانا ما نبغي هذه بضاعتنا ردت إلينا ونمير أهلنا ونحفظ أخانا ونزداد كيل بعير ذلك كيل يسير قال لن أرسله معكم حتى تؤتون موثقا من الله لتأتونني به إلا أن يحاط بكم فلما آتوه موثقهم قال الله على ما نقول وكيل وقال يا بني لا تدخلوا من باب واحد وادخلوا من أبواب متفرقة وما أغني عنكم من الله من شيء إن الحكم إلا لله عليه توكلت وعليه فليتوكل المتوكلون ولما دخلوا من حيث أمرهم أبوهم ما كان يغني عنهم من الله من شيء إلا حاجة في نفس يعقوب قضاها وإنه لذو علم لما علمناه ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. Okay, we are on mindset. Duty with ihsan is always the top priority. Duty with ihsan is always the top priority. Sadly, the Muslim world, you find that we have, when it comes to being doing work, we have two negative mindsets that are crippling the Muslim Ummah. One is we always look for shortcuts to achieve things or attain things. We want it to be given to us for free, without any hard work. That's number one mindset that's crippling the Muslim Ummah. And number two mindset we have, negative, which is we want others to do it for ourselves. So if hard work needs to be done, we want others to do it on behalf of us, whilst we are ungrateful towards them. Whilst we are ungrateful towards them. So you see people employing people with less money, beyond less than average. You see people taking advantage of people by giving them long hours. So all of this falls into this mindset. You see also, for example, when people do the work, you take the credit without giving credit to them. These two negative mindsets is crippling the Muslim Ummah at large, from top to bottom and from bottom to top. You see the countries which are either developed or are developing, one of the mindsets they have is the mindset of independency and self-sufficiency. Independency and self-sufficiency is something ingrained within their sheer nature. And within these two mindsets of independence and self-sufficiency, you find the mindset of ihsan in whatever they do. Being a perfectionist, as they call it. They have the perfectionist mindset. So you find, for example, in Germany after World War II, even though a lot of money was put in, if the people were not, did not have the mindset of self-sufficiency and independence, and if they did not have the mindset of excellence, then they would not have become the top economy in Europe. You find the same thing in Japan. I don't want to name countries, but Muslim countries, but you find that they have lots of wealth. They may have wealth in the beginning of like Japan and Germany. They may have more wealth than these countries, but because of lack of mindset of independence and self-sufficiency and lack of excellence in work, they have lagged behind them. Muslim countries, they have so much wealth. Some of the Muslim countries, underneath their feet, gas, oil, natural resources, but because of those negative mindsets, they're lazy and they have lagged behind. Oh, yeah. The title we gave, saying your expertise and fulfilling your role in crisis isn't being boastful nor showing off. It's rather a duty to do so. A lot of times we confuse between our saying our credentials or saying our abilities and showing off. A lot of time people think you're showing off when you're actually just mentioning your credentials or your abilities. And a lot of times people tend to show off in disguise that they are simply mentioning their abilities. So how do you judge its due place? The way to judge it is when you need to say it, when there's a need. When there's no need for you to say it, then if you say it, then you're most likely showing off. But if there's a need for you to say it and then you say it, the situation, the circumstance, the context determines or demands you to say your abilities, your capabilities, then it's not showing off, nor is it boasting. But you can even argue and debate and dialogue with someone who's claiming they have the abilities and you're trying to say, no, I have better abilities than you in that particular case or in that particular work or responsibility or duty or task, right? You can even argue for the sake of that job because you actually believe and feel that you can do a better job than so-and-so. This is not showing off because it's needed. It is demanded from you to say your credentials or your abilities. So what is it called? It's a duty for you to say then your ability. It is your duty. If you don't say your abilities and capabilities, your credentials, then and there, then you are actually being negligent. You are actually being undutiful to whoever you're responsible over or towards. Okay, so the verses we quote here is verses of 55 to 57. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَ جَعَلْنِي عَلَى خَزَائِنِ الْأَرْضِ إِنِّي حَفِيظٌ عَلِيمٌ. So Yusuf Islam is saying to the king, right, make me a treasurer of this land, yeah, for I am an expert in this field and I will make sure your interests and the land's interests are protected. Okay, so here Yusuf Islam was not boasting, he was simply fulfilling his duty in the context of that land. In the context of that society, he was simply fulfilling his sincere care for them. Now, most of people today, do they show off? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. We all show off here and there, now and then. The best, even the best of us. So if that is the case, one might question, why am I saying this mindset? Why am I saying this mindset? The reason I'm saying this mindset is, even if you show off, as long as you have this mindset of excellence, then others benefit. Say that one more time. Even if you show off, as long as you have the mindset of excellence, then others benefit. They may not benefit from your character or your intention of showing off, but they benefit from your work mindset. Also, if you have the mindset of excellence, then sooner or later, if you're in the beginning showing off, or now and then you show off, sooner or later, showing off will not be the priority. Why not? Because when your mindset is excellence in your work, then sooner or later, the causes, the visions, the missions, the projects, the tasks, the strategies, the tactics, planning and execution, those become your focus point. And when they become your focus point, showing off becomes secondary. Eventually, if you do show off, it will be always after you achieve things, not before. It will not be showing off of exaggeration. It will not be showing off of your past things. It will not be showing off of your future things which you have not achieved. It will be showing off, if it is, things that you've achieved present. So this mindset of excellence is your top priority in your work, this mindset mitigates practically showing off for the long run. Now the next mindset will tell you the people who actually show off. What's wrong with them? So next mindset says, showing off is insecurity. No, that's anyone who actually shows off, i.e. who exaggerates things, or he talks about his past achievements, or he talks about, or she talks about her future ambitions and goals and so forth, but so far away, with the ethics and morals they have, most likely they will not achieve it. The minds they have, most likely they will not achieve it. And thereby, these people show off. Main reason they show off is because of insecurity. They are insecure. They are insecure in what? They are insecure of the present. And they are insecure of their achievements in the future. Anyone you see showing off, simply they are deep down insecure of the present, and they are insecure of the future. And they even may be insecure of the past. They even may be insecure of the past. Of their past. Now, This mindset I gave you as khabar, I gave you as factual information. Why? Because no one shows off except they have this. No one shows off except they have this. And the utmost level of insecurity is that they are insecure of what in other words, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do towards them. That's the ultimate level. So Allah, for example, say Qarun, he had all wealth. How was he insecure? He was showing off. He was insecure with the fact that what Allah will do with him. Same with Fir'aun. Same with these people who show ruthlessness and be merciless. The ultimate level within their hearts is they are afraid what Allah, the Supreme Being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do with them. Now, again, I gave this as a factual information so that you memorize this statement. Showing off is insecurity. So then you actualize it, like, you know what, I am showing off. Why am I showing off? Is because I'm insecure. I'm insecure of these people around me. I'm intimidated by this individual's talents or his silence or her or hers appearance and so forth. So all of these you can easily then put into perspective. But then you work on your insecurities rather than showing off. In the title, what we put is showing off of appearance or looking down upon people eventually leads to insecurities, illnesses, and even disabilities. This sentence, I'm expanding a bit more. What I'm saying is, even if someone has a legitimate reason to show off, yeah, he or she achieves what they intend to achieve, plan to achieve, they have talents, they have skills, they have abilities, they have a legitimate reason to show off. Yeah? What we're saying is, in the beginning, if someone says, you know what, I have no insecurities, in the beginning, if you do not have any insecurities, and you have legitimate reasons to show off, eventually it will lead to insecurities, illnesses, and even disabilities. Why? Because you'll be envied. You'll be envied and you'll receive evil eye from people. And worst is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make your ni'mah, blessings, into a punishment. So even if you have legitimate reason for you to show off, be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the favors He has bestowed upon you. Be grateful in order for you to receive more blessings and also for people to love you and for people not to give you evil eye intentionally or unintentionally, especially the envious evil people. After you are thankful and grateful, and you are humble, you're sincere, you're caring, you're generous, you're loving, right? Still, if you fear evil eye from envious people or jealous people, then take the necessary means. Spiritual, physical, if it means even medical. Yaqub alayhi salam, his children, all of them were handsome and beautiful. And that's what Yaqub alayhi salam said to his sons when they were going out to look for Yusuf, is do not enter through the village of the town or the city. Do not enter all of you together in one go. Yeah, enter separately from separate doors, because once you enter together, people will see your appearances and they will know you all are sons, and you all are brothers, and they will give you evil eye. So here, Yaqub alayhi salam didn't only teach them of not to show off, taught them to be grateful, but also he taught them to take the means of not attracting attention towards them. So what does the showing off do? Showing off, it makes others attract attention towards you, and you're attracting attention towards yourself. So part of being humble and being grateful is that you actually do not try to, or you proactively and consciously try not to attract attention towards yourself. Today's social media, what does it do? Huh? It's the complete opposite. It attracts attention towards yourself more and more. And it's all fake. That's the worst part of it. It's all fake. Everyone puts everything up to the best of theirs, and everyone is all, they say, fake it until you make it. No one's making it. Everyone's faking it, but no one's making it. They're losing the substance. You know, a lot of brothers and sisters, when they come to me and speak to me privately, they admit that they don't even know who they are. 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and they are saying they don't even know who they actually are. Can you imagine? Can you imagine back in the days of our parents, your parent around 30s, and your parent is saying, I don't know who I am. That was unheard of. But today you have 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds are saying, I don't even know who I am. Yeah? So, what I would say, if you have social media, put other people there. Yeah? Attract attention to causes, institutions, organizations, other noble, great people, individuals, conferences, events, classes, courses, right? Attract attention to khair and goodness and uprightness. Yeah? Avoid attracting attention to yourself and to your family. Okay. Do I advise for everyone to have social media? No, I don't advise against it, but what I advise against is attracting attention to yourself. As long as you attract attention towards causes, towards institutions, towards organizations, towards classes, courses, events, conferences, charity work, humanitarian work, yeah, and other great people, right? Then have social media, no problem. Yeah, as you know, I personally have no Facebook, no Instagram, no Telegram, nothing. So if you Google me, you'll not find anything on 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 myself. Yeah. All I have is WhatsApp. That's my social media. Okay. Next mindset. Sadness is always relative and temporary for me. Sadness is always relative and temporary for me. This is something you have to integrate. You have to, in order for you to be a stable, functional, right, empowering human being who adds value to other people, you have to make sadness and grief relative to yourself, temporary to yourself. Cannot consume you. Cannot consume you. You cannot allow sadness, grief to consume you. And the reason it consumes is when you allow it to become not relative and not temporary. When you allow it not to be relative and not to be temporary. Relative means that sadness plays only a part of your life, not the whole part of your life. Grief plays only a part of your life, not the whole part of your life. SubhanAllah, just yesterday, I dealt with a case where the sister was divorced 4 times, 4 different marriages. So 3 times, this was a 4th marriage. And she was in the brink of divorce, just the 4th one. And the brother had divorced 3 times. This was his 4th marriage as well. And they were brink of divorce. And they were under 30s. Shocking case, under 30, both of them. So imagine the sadness and sorrow they're going through. And they were talking about the sadness and sorrows of life and what they're going through in life, even though they're still young. And then after speaking to them, I tried to put in every matter in perspective. And as the main thing at the end I said is, you have to own some of the blame of this sadness and grief. You can't just blame it on your ex-husbands. You can't just blame it on your ex-wives. Yeah. And then I said, you still have a long life left. You can get out of those griefs and sadness you went through, right? And you can make your life better. Yeah, you can make your life better. How can you make your life better? Is improve the character. Both of your characters, improve it. You have problems, go out there, solve it. Find people who can solve it for you practically. Just sit on it and let sadness and sorrow consume you. Similarly, don't sit on your defects and your weaknesses without getting rid of the defects and improving your weaknesses and strengthening it. Similarly, stop blaming others. Take responsibility of your own faults. Okay? So, sadness is always relative and temporary, right? If someone deceived you, say for the sake of argument, someone has deceived you and they brought sadness to you and they brought grief to you, what does Islam say? Islam says, make sure you are not deceived again from that same home. So if you're deceived again, who brought that sadness? You. You yourself brought that sadness to yourself. Okay? So know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not there to make you sad and to make you upset and to make you grieve. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there to make you empowered, is there to relieve, is there to make you happy and enjoy. Is also there to make you comfortable and prosperous, and most importantly is there to make you content of whatever you're going through. It's not there for you to be consumed with sadness and grief. Now we know from reality that there are people who have gone through worst case scenarios, right? The worst a human being can go through. Yet they were content. Yet they were content. That contentment shows that yes, they were sad, and yes, they were upset, and yes, they were angry, and yes, they were frustrated, and yes, they were grieving, but that didn't stop their life. They continued to play a part in their lives, and they continued to make a positive impact in the society. Like you saw of Yusuf alayhi salam in one hand, and like you saw his father Yaqub alayhi salam on the other side of the world. Yeah, so they both were going through sadness, they both were going through grief, but at the end, they attained happiness and joy and delight because they were content of what they were going through and they were working towards happiness, they were working towards delight, they were working towards solving the issues, they were working towards finding relief. Why did they have that mindset? Because sadness and grief are temporary and they are relative. That's why they kept working on finding delight and happiness. They kept working on finding relief whilst they had contentment in what they were going through. Whilst they had contentment upon what they were going through. So verses 83 and 87 shows the level of forbearance and patience they both had. They were content with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the trial they were going through, whilst they were proactively and consciously and proactively, wholeheartedly were working towards relieving that sadness and sorrow and relieving that grief they were going through. In the title we wrote, sadness and sorrow is natural. Sadness and sorrow is natural. The best way to channel it is through having hope in Allah by means of worship and then by being productive. The best way to channel it is through having hope in Allah by means of worship and then by being productive. Worship gives you contentment. Worship gives you contentment. And being productive makes you eventually achieve and attain results and fruits by which you replace the sadness and sorrows and griefs with happiness and delight. I'm going to give this statement, make sure you note this down. Everything through which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you trials, by which you be sad or you grieve, can be replaced in dunya. Everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you trials by which you go through sadness and grief can be replaced in dunya. There's nothing in this dunya that gives you sadness and sorrow except that can be replaced in dunya as well. Yeah? So for example, you went through sadness and sorrow of what your parents did to you, for example. Yeah? As soon as you have children and you become parents, that grief and that sadness goes away. Or eventually when you have grandchildren, that sadness and that grief goes away. Or they did not give you in trouble, but you were very close to your parents and they passed away. As soon as you have children, that sadness and that grief is forgotten. If you're going through trials of wives and husbands, spouses, then the issue of divorce might give you grief and sadness and sorrow, but you eventually can get married, you eventually can find spouses that give you comfort. If you're going through a business crisis where your partner deceived you, eventually you'll find partners where you can trust. Eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you money and wealth by which you can even choose your partners. As for the trials, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left contentment therein, and you cannot replace it, then those are only left in worship. those are only left in worship. For example, you cannot have children. You cannot have children. So here, no one has taken your right away in this life. No one, a particular person is not giving you a trial. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has tried you. In that matter, the only way you can find contentment and joy and happiness is through worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or for example, you're a person permanently disabled. The only way that person, he or she is sane, she was okay, she was normal, he or she was normal, and then he or she became disabled. The only way they can find contentment and joy and happiness is through contentment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through worship. So in this life, there's nothing of sadness and sorrow except it can be replaced. Either by contentment through worship, or either by being productive and then seeking the replacement in dunya life. Thereby, there is no such thing for a Muslim, for a true Muslim, to be sad and to go through grief, because there is the replacement. Either in worship equals to contentment, or either being productive and achieving the replacement of what has been taken away. And finally, whatever trial you go through, the reward ultimately for the Muslims in their coming life. Whatever you go through, the reward ultimately is in the coming life. So, for example, Yusuf and his brother Bin Yamin and Yaqub alayhi salam, the trial and the sadness and grief, when they met in this dunya life, they achieved happiness and delight at the end, right? But in the akhirah life, all the sadness and grief they went through, for eternity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward them because they were Muslims. Because they were Muslims. And thereby, you see how relative and temporary sadness and sorrows actually becomes for a true Muslim. It becomes very minute, it becomes very insignificant. Okay, so these were from the verses of 83 and 87. We'll stop here inshallah, and then next week most likely will be the last lesson, because I think we just got 2 more mindsets left. Thereby we'll be finishing mindset of Surah Yusuf, and then inshallah, hopefully my plan was to go through the mindset of Surah Kahf, inshallah. So hopefully we will go through mindset of Surah Kahf, inshallah. Any questions? Any questions online? Salatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin nabiyyina wa imamina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, bismillah.
The question is it possible for a believer to be content and still ask Allah for more? I know you're supposed to ask Allah for everything, for your wishes and needs, but does that mean to see what I'm grateful?
No, you can ask Allah. Being content doesn't necessarily mean that you don't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Being content means that you realize that this trial, this tribulation, or this sadness and grief was not necessarily the sadness and the grief, but what made you sad. The actual cause of it came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially if you did not have any authority or any power or any influence to mitigate that. So you be content therein. As for asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what you want, your wishes, be it in dunya matters or be it in the akhirah matters, or be it in any matter, right? If it's genuine, if it's good, if it's upright, if it's desirable for you, halal way, then yes, you can ask. And part of you actually believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, part of that belief is that you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what you actually need, what you actually want to desire for, wish for, rather than not asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what you actually in need of, or what you actually want, or what you actually desire for. Yeah? So if you genuinely want this, right, and you don't ask Allah for it, that means you're relying on yourself rather than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That shows your weakness of your iman on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also your trust, and also your belief that Allah loves you more than you love yourself. So continue to ask. Continue to ask. Ayyub alayhi salam, eventually when Allah gave him his health and everything back, he was very prosperous, he was very healthy and very wealthy. And then when there was more wealth coming towards him, he was grabbing them, the wealth, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was laughing at him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Ayyub, "Oh Ayyub, I gave you so much. Are you not satisfied? Are you not content?" And the reply of Ayyub was, right, "La ghinan an fadli Rabbi." I'll never ever be content, right? And I'll never ever feel independent or enriched, right? As long as Allah, you are the one who's given me out of your grace, out of your wealth. How can I ever say, right, I don't want your wealth if you, Allah, given it to me, right? So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the early Muslims, one of the main reasons they attained what they attained is not simply because they were trying harder than us. Yes, they were trying harder than us today, but they're also making lots of dua, lots of genuine dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order for Allah to give it to them. For example, when Muhammad ﷺ was in the Khandaq, and there were the 10,000 army were encircling Medina, and ﷺ went out, and he could not, like the Sahaba, when they were digging, they could not remove a rock. ﷺ went and struck that rock. In that rock, ﷺ was saying that you will conquer. He was seeing their conquer, and in that conquering, it's ajib how he ﷺ was saying the luxuries of that city, palaces, the gold, this and that. ﷺ was describing you will be conquering them. So what does that show? What that shows that is human nature. For you want luxury, for you want comfort, for you want treasure and gold and silver. It's human nature. And ﷺ was not negating that. ﷺ was saying, yes, you're now dying of poverty, but there will be a day coming where you will have so much wealth and so much assets and so much luxury that you'll not know what to do with it. And that came within a decade or so, that took place. Now, so ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, genuinely ask. And don't be shy to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the depth of what your soul wants and what your heart wants. As long as it's halal. That's why it's there for you. It's there for you to fulfill your needs. Yani to the extent I can even say it's not embarrassing, because deen is not embarrassing. For example, if you like a particular type of brother or a type of sister, yeah, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows what you want, but He wants you to ask, because Allah created those creations. Right? So if you like, for example, a pretty sister or a handsome brother, this height and whatever, ask those particular matters, no problem. Yeah. The more you do, the more you will learn Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the more you will make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala genuine. Any other questions? Okay. We'll stop here, inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.